with you. In the Midlands, BBC Radio.
Interestingly, it was the very first show the Cliff and the Drifters, as we were calling, ever did together professionally. October the 5th, Victoria Hall, Hanley. Bruce is nodding his head and saying, yes, we haven't been back since then. So I'll accept that. I don't think he's right, actually, because I remember something in our book when Tony Meehan and I shared a digs with that. Remember?
That was that night.
Dave Walker? No, it wasn't. Tony wasn't on that tour. Tony wasn't on that tour. It was Hanley Victoria Hall, and we walked. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Domestic tiff.
Oh, that's okay. We in fact tonight listened to the whole gig, and there seems to be different arrangements of the music each time we see you play live, and it's nice to see you back in the United Kingdom because you now live in, of course, in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. As regards when you say different arrangements, as regards our hits, we try to keep the hits as the album, or as the single even, album, single, whatever, EP even. Because we feel this is what we would like as fans. You know, like to hear things as... There's only about one thing we changed, which is Flingle Bunt, isn't it? We do a slight different sort of end thing on that. But there's little subtle things going on. Is that what you meant? Little subtle things in the music.
The banter between you guys on stage, though, was that rehearsed, or was it just different each night?
Well, some is, some isn't. Some is absolutely fresh every night. And so we never know quite what's going to happen. I mean, for example, with Cliff, you never know what's... That's our keyboard player.
That's Cliff Hall, by the way.
Yeah, not Cliff Richard. We always know what's going to happen with Cliff Richard, but never with Cliff Hall.
Your very early recordings, do you have any memories from your very first recording session at all? Your memories, the very first time you went in. The Chesternuts was the first recording session, wasn't it? Yeah. Any memories of that?
Yeah. Very few of that. I think I remember the Cliff and the Drifters things much more readily. For example, the first time we recorded with Cliff, when Norrie Paramore, who's our record producer, was naturally enough a little cautious and wasn't sure how we'd perform in a studio situation. And he had a guy called Ernie Shear on guitar, a percussionist who could also double on drums, another bass player, so we had like a stand-up bass player and Jet on bass guitar. And when we recorded it, Cliff preferred me to play the guitar solo than the other guy because he felt it was more kind of happening and energetic. The other guy was a little bit bland, you know. And it was quite funny because Cliff came and says, hey, I've sung the one on yours much better than the one on his, you know. And so that's the one we chose anyway. And so from that session onward, Norrie never got anyone else in. But it was, you know, you can imagine his feeling as an experienced record producer, just wondering, can we really cut it in the studios, you know? And fortunately we could.
Can you pick a track at this moment in time for us a drop-in of the early recordings that you'd like us to play for your fans?
What, of a Shad's recording? Oh, well, there's so many we like, I think, and for different reasons, you know, things which are kind of...
Choose one of mine.
I've just been passed a first album here. I don't know why, Brian Bennett. Titles.
New Brown?
Titles. No. You'd like a single hit, I think, yes?
No, you choose, and let us have a free choice, Hank. You choose whatever you like, and we can play. We've got so many of your records, we can play anything, literally.
Play everything with Welsh on it, Hank.
Everything with Welsh on it. There'll be a welcome in the hillside. There'll be a welcome... I don't know, let's choose a single hit, one of our hits. One of the greatest hits is the one Bruce mentioned, Foot Tapper. It was a #1 for us, and from the film Summer Holiday. And we do it on stage, and for some reason it always goes down well.
Can I ask you, Hank, on stage, you always play the lead guitar. Is that true in all your recordings, that you always play lead and Bruce plays rhythm? Or are there any releases where you've totally swapped over?
No. I can't play rhythm like Bruce, fortunately.
Certainly can't play lead guitar like Hank.
That was Bruce. Yeah, that was Bruce. We've kind of, you know, all got our sort of slots in the band, and we're kind of specialists in that sense. I mean, you know, Bruce has a very, I think, recognizable rhythm style, and it's always just worked out that we've stuck to our slots. You have something in mind, I think, when you asked that question.
Well, I was just wondering, because it's the normally accepted thing, whether there were any kind of exceptions to that. Another question I'd like to ask is, when you do your recordings, are you always all there? Or sometimes, especially now with like you being in Australia, do you kind of hear the rest of the tape and then maybe submit your bit for dubbing onto later?
Well, I mean, Bruce's always all there, but I'm never all there. Now, the way we used to work in the old days was we performed. It was a performance in the studio, and that was the record. Modern recording is different. I'll hand you over to Bruce for that, because he's very involved in recording. He's a recording freak.
The question we'd like to ask you is about the recording sessions, and who does what, where, and how, Bruce?
I'll tell you exactly. I've got a young friend, in fact, he's one of Britain's brightest composers, young composers, called Brian Bennett. And Brian Bennett and I are there every day, all day, slaving and recording and putting the drums down and the keyboards and the bass and the rhythm guitars, aren't we, Brian? We do all of that, and then this fella, I don't know who he is, he suddenly flies in when all the work is done.
Tanned and handsome.
Yeah, tanned and handsome, flies in from somewhere called Australia, which I've never heard of before, and he puts his guitar on the top of what Brian Bennett and I have slaved at for weeks, and then he goes home again. And then he said he thinks that's it. I mean, that's his recording, you know. He used to work harder, actually, in the old days, you know, when we used to sit four of us together, looking at each other as we recorded. But, of course, modern techniques, 24-track, 48-track, whereas in the old days, because of the track situation, we all played together, and you couldn't overdub or anything, so what you played at the time was what you got. These days, with modern technology, you're quite right in one way, you don't actually have to be there at the same time. But that's just sort of progress.
You can leave your guitar there, not be there. It's fantastic modern technology.
Over the years, I mean, you started off coming from various groups, you've come together as the Shadows, you've done various things on your own. I mean, you've recorded yourself solo, things like Please Mr. Please, and Hank's done things like the Docklands concert, and Brian's doing the Ruth Rendell things. Are there any records that have come out where you've actually been asked to guest on? Maybe Brian as the drummer at a session, or have you done guitar for any other artists, or has Hank done solos for people?
Well, speaking for myself, that's Bruce Welch, that tall, slim, dark-haired, handsome one, isn't it?
Okay, you're paying me, yeah.
I used to be. I haven't guested on anyone's album, and I have no intention of. I have made one record in my life, which was Please Mr. Please. But you'll get people like Brian Bennett and Hank Marvin who will play on anyone's record. I mean, Brian Bennett has played with, from Eddie Cochran to Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, you know, Georgie Fay just, you know, it just doesn't care who he plays for. And Hank's a bit like that. He'll guest with Dire Straits, he'll get up with the Little River Band, all these people, you know.
No shame.
Too available. You'll notice that there were millions of movies made over the last few years. Bruce Welch hasn't been in any of them. That's because I'm too selective.
Maybe the book you did, you know.
The book.
Maybe the book will be made into a movie.
That's right.
So you just finished reading the book, haven't you, Chris? Because you only read large print.
I only read large print. Do you think you will do anyone's, work for anyone, or is this a policy of your own then, just to do stuff for yourself, or with the Shads?
That is a question to that tall, thin,
Dark, handsome
handsome man again, Bruce Welch here. No, I won't guest on other people's albums. In a nutshell,
Yeah.
I won't. The fact that I haven't ever been asked to is something totally different.
Bruce is actually far too modest. What is not said that people like Eric Clapton, Mark Knopfler, right, Peter Townsend, they have all not asked him, to be honest.
Can I ask you one more? Can I ask you one more question, Bruce? Your Please Mr. Please to me is very in the country vein.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? And why did you do it like that? Because one wouldn't think of you as a country.
Well, it was written in a country place called Radlett, which is where Brian Bennett lives. And I
actually lived there.
Yeah. Radlett is a hick country town, 16 miles north of London. And John Rostill and myself wrote that song about 1973-ish, 1973. And we walked down the high street together, just before we'd written it, arm in arm. And we saw the horses tied to the rails like they do in the Western movies. And we thought, we've got to go and write a country song, which we did, and called it Please Mr. Please.
Called it Horses Tied to the Rails. But it wasn't such a good title.
I think we ought to play that track right now on the record collector.
If you have got that, you should play it, because there's only you and someone else got it.